We ready on YouTube? Okay, so we'll kick this work session off Tuesday, June 28th. It is just about straight up 10 o'clock, I believe. And I'll call it to order. And Tim, you want to lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna change this around just a little bit. Instead of starting with the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, which is 2A, we're gonna start with the Fairgrounds, 2B. And Homero and Joseph, I guess you guys are the ones to kick this off.
Roger that. Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Just like Supervisor Klein stated, Gila County Fairgrounds is the first one. What we're looking at doing is to try and paint a vision of what we're looking at going forward, but also create a path forward of how we get there. So for the Gila County Fairgrounds, we're looking for a master plan, to create a master plan to plan the future upgrades of the facilities and redevelopment of the site and how we use it.
Does anyone have a handout of that presentation, please?
While we're waiting for them to move the slide over.
The presentation.
This is the beginning point. This is, some of the things that we put up here may not be necessarily perfect, but it was what we know at the time. And then we build on this.
Also, too, you guys may have to share the mic because I don't believe they can hear.
So this is a starting point, and we put on these slides things that we know, that we've heard, that we've seen. And they may not be exactly right, but I think they're in the ballpark. And it's just to get us started to see what's the next step for long-term planning for both of these properties, and how can we best utilize them as time goes on. So I just wanted to share with you. The first thing you're going to see is a vision on this one, and that's one of the reasons that I'm speaking up right now. It's not our vision. It's just this is something that we've heard, but we do need to have a clarity on what our visions are on a piece of paper somewhere. I think it's important for us to have that. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to Joseph.
Thank you, Homer. That's exactly it, is being able to look at how other sites and how other counties operate, not just their fairgrounds, but some of the other retreats, and be able to extract some of their successes and maybe some of their challenges. The vision going forward, the fairgrounds is a major investment for the Gila County, an asset to the community. The fair remains a highly valued yearly event, but Gila County would like to reshape the fair complex into a year-round, multi-use venue. Gila County's hope is that the Gila County Fairgrounds will become an economic driver, as well as offer positive quality of life opportunities for Gila County residents. The good news with the fairgrounds is we're tracking forward with multiple priorities and quite a few projects. We have purchased and are soon beginning the install of 150 by 250 portable arena, fencing around the bleachers at the Rough Stock Arena. That's already been completed also. That was a safety concern that was identified. Restrooms by the Rough Stock Arena, HVAC for the exhibit hall, removal of old racetrack fence and outbuildings, replace exhibit hall doors, demo and install new paving behind main grandstand, purchase and install covered pavilion behind main grandstand, cover for existing bleachers at Rough Stock Arena, improve Wi-Fi and phone connectivity, sand, replace, and paint bleacher seats at main grandstand, solar panel suggestions for bleacher covers and pavilion, and goat barn. The big goal that we're looking to push forward with, these are just to kick off at the fairgrounds. However, the main goal is to support the infrastructure that's there or create it or improve it to the point where we can start not only utilizing it, but have our community want to go out there and have people that are traveling through our area want to stop there. So this is just the tip of the spear. As we get more feedback from the Board of Supervisors and admin team, there's a lot more that we're going to be able to do to improve the infrastructure for the fairgrounds.
So Chairman and Board, the piece of paper that you see here comes from a bigger spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has like due dates on it. But what I wanted to share, what this slide shares is like, kind of like where we're at with the fairgrounds. And where we're at is a building assessment. We've assessed the buildings and we said we need to make these repairs or these modifications, okay? This piece of paper here is like a 2 or 3 year plan. As a matter of fact, they're due to all be completed by no later than 23, okay? And so it's not a master plan. It's not a long-term plan. It's a component of a long-term plan. And that is we have looked at our buildings and we've asked ourselves, what do we need to do with these buildings? Take them down or repair them, or what do we do? But it doesn't address the longer-term issue of what do we want to use this property for, okay? And so I just wanted to share that this is the beginning. We're going to work on these things because they need to be done. There's obvious things that we need to do. This doesn't address the issue of like, how often are they going to use that building? On some of the plans that we looked at, they had days of use. The exhibit hall, how many days out of the year do you use it? The fair, how many days does the fair use the facility? And that's a simple answer to that question. But what they did is they looked at the buildings from the perspective of how much are they being used? Do we expand them? And if we expand them, what is the expectation of their usage? Anyway, that's getting a little ahead of the story. I just wanted to share that this is, if we were to do this from the very beginning, this would be like part 1 of a master plan.
So, you guys have any questions on this list, Tim?
No, because I was kind of beneficial in helping on some of the things, because the fairground's one of my pet peeves. Years ago, I worked there. There was something there every weekend, and I hate to go out there and watch it just be a dust collector, because I know the capability that it has. And, you know, there used to be things almost every weekend, and I know that, you know, our recreational dollars is some of our big tax revenues, is on our sales tax and things. We've got a beautiful piece of property out there that it's not inviting anybody for anything, and that frustrates me. Because you know, okay, horse races are out, but what's in? I know people out there on Sunday are flying airplanes. If they had a better facility, how many people from Phoenix, Scottsdale and stuff would come up to fly airplanes or have a little, you know, the little remote air show? Portable arena, you know, there's a lot of ropings going on, and you see, you know, a lot of expensive rigs going around the state pulling horses roping. You know, high school rodeo finals. There's just, you know, we've got the livestock barns out there. We've got trailer spaces out there. Some of those old paddocks couldn't be used if you wanted to. So, you know, I mean, in the future, tearing them down and create more RV spaces, because there's people that come in from Canada and stuff, and like down around Superior, you see people out riding horse, and I like to trail ride, so we go on a lot of different trail rides. And there's people are always looking for different places to ride. Well, holy smokes, there at the fairgrounds, you know, there's a lot of places that a guy could kick out and ride, and they could, you know, keep their horses in the paddocks, they could, you know, keep their RV there. There's just a lot of possibilities for that. And recreation, even though gas is expensive. At Roosevelt, Schoolhouse Point, there's not a place to park your truck and trailer because all the slips are full. And so, you know, if we have a beautiful recreation site, we have beautiful temperatures 8 months out of the year, and we're not creating any recreational activity for anybody, local or Phoenix, Tucson, Safford. We're just not doing anything. And to me, that's a horror. As a business person, if you have the capabilities of renting a place, why aren't you? I mean, do you not need the money? Do you not need the revenue? Let's just let it collect dust and rot. And that frustrates me to no end. So, you know, some of the things, make it safe, like tearing down the that's, Joe Levine and I put up that race fence years ago. It's fiberglass. If a horse runs into it, if a kid runs into it, if you touch it, it'll cut you. You know, that stuff needs to be taken down. We need to create a friendly environment. And like I say, the arena, what more can you do with an arena? A lot, because for a lot of rodeos and stuff, you need 2 arenas. For high school and stuff finals, you need 2 arenas. And, you know, down the road, if we can at least get it functional and safe, because a lot of the old buildings aren't safe, and things. So if we can get it safe and functional, you know, then we could talk to someone who is in the recreational business and help us to maybe put together what events would work well there to increase, you know, recreation, and what would that facility be able to do? You know, I mean, the old circle racetracks. I know down in Phoenix what that one's going out. If people want to race cars, do we have room out there to build a racetrack? Motocross track. There used to be a motocross track out there. So, and not only that, is in the future, I've been talking to James, there's a lot of property that's right next to that's obtainable. And so, you know, what kind of recreational development can we create with what we have? And so that's kind of where I'm at. But questions on the list? No, because like I said, I've talked to staff a lot about this, and I've talked to James about it quite a bit. So a lot of this stuff, I thought that we could, you know, get at least something going with refurbishing kind of what we have.
Steve?
I agree with all that, and to add to that, you can have outdoor concerts. There's just so many things that can happen with an arena. We're close enough to Phoenix to draw that crowd, so events out there, it'd be great. I added this whole list up kind of in my head, $563,250. That's for everything on the list, so I don't know why we wouldn't proceed with this list right now rather than trying to thin it down, because we need to get started. This may be the tip of the spear, but we need to poke something and get going.
Roger that.
So I think we've had a budget for the fairgrounds every year for the 5 years we've been in here. This discussion started when me and Tim came on the board with Tommy, was the lack of use at the fairground, and, you know, it's just sitting there. And so, and I believe you've probably been working with that money that we've had in that line item budget for a lot of this, which is a really good start. The old arena used to be inside the track, correct? The way I remember it.
It did, up where the bleachers are.
So now we're gonna relocate them together down on the flat further? Both arenas will be down there, or is that where you're putting the new one?
Chairman, Supervisor Klein, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you run that by me one more time?
The portable arena that you've purchased, you're gonna set up, is it down by their existing arena now?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna
Okay.
be located down that way.
So, I know you guys took out that inner fence on that racetrack, or going to, right?
Yes.
So, are we gonna put anything in the middle of that racetrack again, or you're kinda thinking about leaving it open?
As of right now, it's going to be open. There's a lot of work to be done to decide on what we can put, you know, either out in the middle. Supervisor Humphrey, he brought up a few things, you know, what things are we going to try and draw out? Supervisor Christensen, what's going to draw the people from the valley who are just passing by or coming here for the destination. So that's the really good news is there's a lot of real estate out there and hopefully more to come to be able to identify those. But we still need to identify what our customer base is, what do they have interests in, and how are we going to accommodate that?
Yeah, that upper level, we have, Mr. Chair, if I may, that upper level, we've got bathroom facilities already there. We've got covered bleachers already there. You sit in those bleachers and you look at a big old nothing, you know, for like I say, you know, a racetrack, for truck pulls, for, you know, outdoor concerts. There's just a lot of things that could be used, because you sit in those bleachers and look at nothing, and nothing happened, and it's frustrating. So if we're putting both of them down below, that's good. I think both of them are gonna need covers. If we go with arenas, we're gonna need covered bleachers down there. And things, we're gonna need bathrooms down there if we're gonna draw that many people. So I think, you know, that's on the list, that's good. But like I say, if we're having all of our rodeo stuff down on the lower, then that upper, holy smokes, the things that could go on. You know, archery shoots, whatever. There's just a number of things that could happen in that huge area.
Yeah, and I can add to that, there's so much opportunity out there. You can't believe with softball tournaments, old car guys having car shows and stuff. These guys like to take their cars, show them off. I mean, if we create a nice environment out there with trees and grass and whatever else it takes to make that a park-like nice area, we could keep it busy.
Roger that.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about, actually. It would really help
It
this
is.
area.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of folks that drive by it every Friday afternoon. We just gotta get them to stop.
Roger that. You're absolutely right.
The thing of it is, we're winning awards with Discover Gila County. We need to build something in Gila
Add
County,
to it.
something else in Gila County for them to discover.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Joseph.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. So the next couple of slides are going to outline what some other counties did with their fairgrounds and how they developed their master plan. But what I'd really like to point out is the opportunity to see what they focused on. So in 2008, a 10-year vision was created to promote the Delta County Fairgrounds development, promoting local art and industry. The plan updated in 2022, 3 public meetings, online survey. Some of those opportunities that came out of that were music events, additional livestock shows, farmers market, art shows, along with crafts, trunk or treat, food truck rodeo, new website. One of the common things that we're going to see through all of these is that they went out to the customer and really tried to extract what does the community want. So just as important, not just what our local community wants, but what are people from Phoenix, from Tucson, or anyone else that's traveling through our area?
Mr. Chair, if I may, yeah, and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
discussed with Mr. Minlove too about setting a meeting to do exactly that, is to reach out to our community to see what our community wants. Is that correct, Mr. Minlove? And that's scheduled
Absolutely,
for
Mis-
too long?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, yes, and that'll be part of this conversation of public meetings.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes.
So Chairman and Board, as I was helping look at these slides and prepare the slides, I thought it important to show that in 2008, they did a master plan, and then in 2022, they repeated that. Because this should be an ongoing effort. We'll solve, maybe we'll give ourselves a roadmap, but we need to continually keep looking at how we can better utilize that area out there. Every one of these that we looked at, and there's many on the internet actually. There's many master plans for fairgrounds, and most of them have to do just with buildings, but a few like the ones you're looking at here also talk about activities. And it's from one of these that I saw, days of use, that kind of interested me as a metric to determine whether or not you expand a facility or you remove that facility. But in this case, they had 3 public meetings and an online survey. And you'll see on the rest of the other 2, and we'll wait for those charts to show up, how they reached out to the community. But all of them did, and we should. I mean, that's what we're doing it for. And I know that this is the beginning point, but I just wanted to share that. And then if you look at some interesting things on this one, a food truck rodeo. It doesn't sound like much, but you could draw a crowd out there in Phoenix, they're very popular. The trunk or treat, I thought that was innovative on their part. Farmers market, I mean, you could have a community garden out there. You could have the co-op teach classes on gardening out there. It's just like we're talking, so then we'll have to prioritize what are the things. We're gonna come up, I think, with a longer list than what we want to try to do in this first master plan. But that's good. We'll pick and choose the things that we think are the best for our community.
Yeah, we've got a lot of local bands. And so, like you say, a food truck rodeo along with music, with several different of our local bands playing, I'm sure they would be willing to do that. And so, things like that could really help in drawing people to our area. So, yeah, there's just like I say, there's a lot of ideas. We just need to get the facility in a shape to where we can start trying some of these things.
Roger that.
If I could add to that, almost everything on this list here exists now in Payson, and they're always well-attended. It draws people from Phoenix. One disappointing thing that's happened recently is there was softball teams that would come up and play tournaments. These are not young people. They're adults. They got money. They stay in the hotels. They buy food. They go shopping. The town of Payson decided to institute high fees in order to rent those, and they went somewhere else. And so I don't agree with that. We need to get the people into the area, then they spend their money. And all of these things exist in Payson, and they're always well-attended.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. On the next slide, Washington County Fair Complex. They worked with LRS architect team and an advisory committee in 2018 to also revise their master plan. And to kind of go back to what Mr. Homero was saying is this is a continuous work in progress. So even though we're looking to establish this is something that's been somewhat created in our past and something that we continue to move forward with and work on. Again, they emphasized on outreach, citizen and user surveys, stakeholders and broader community, focus groups, open house. Some of their focus was the existing facility analysis. Homero was bringing that up for the use, day use. And with that, I do agree with Homero for sure. We should be able to see what's getting utilized, the extent it's getting utilized before we start putting money into maybe a facility or a portion of it when it maybe would be better utilized in a different location or a different portion of the facility. Programming, what space is needed and how will tourism, community interest, and fair use it. Reviewed transit availability, phasing, and costs. And I think this is some really good highlights and bullet points. The phasing and costs, I think, is extremely important. It allows us to not only metabolize it within our capabilities, but also allows us to budget and be responsible in the sense of not just creating a bunch of facilities, but being able to go back to that analysis that Homero was talking about.
Chairman and board, every one of these has probably like on the internet, 20, 30-page document that's attached to these things. We tried to pick the things that we thought were interesting and would motivate the dialogue. On this one, they talk about focus groups. And a focus group could be you meet with nothing but the people that are involved in using the facilities during the fair. And you find out from them what went right, what went wrong, what's needed to make the fair better. Or you could have a focus group that focused on vegetation and tree planting and making it green. and you would bring in some experts and you talk about how to do it, et cetera. That's what they meant by the focus groups. And then at the end of their outreach, they had like a open house where they actually talked about the different components, what they're doing, and people would walk around and look at the items that are of interest to them. But again, pretty extensive outreach on this, with this group. In here, you see the existing facility analysis, and you see the use of days or days, use days, they call it, okay? And an interesting one is transit. They wanted folks to be able to, so we would examine the transit opportunities here as well. Maybe those are special occasion in some cases. You want the bus to run up there on a Friday night and drop them off and pick them up later on. But those are all things I think that we can discuss with the right group of folks.
All right, so next slide, Boulder County Fairgrounds Master Plan. The staff worked with an architect group, design workshop to re-image the 1978 master plan. Existing site conditions and assessment. And essentially that's what we're currently going through, is the early stages of the existing site conditions and assessing what needs to be removed, what's a safety concern, and some of those basic questions that we're addressing in that original slide with some of the projects we're pushing forward with. They reviewed trends in fairgrounds, animal and people health, site-wide security, year-round destination sustainability, green up trees, vegetation, animal AG education, hosting non-traditional events, connections to trails, exercise and sensory experience, wide range of rental venues, character-defining elements, and within that, the focus groups and the surveys determine spaces most used and plans to use in the future. Just like you've heard myself and Homero say earlier, is identifying what do we need to have out there, and we know that's an integral part of it. When it comes to some of the wide range of rental venues, is trying to establish some of the other property out there, or maybe just simply expanding on what we have. The exercise and sensory experiences, we already have a dog park out there, but how can we improve it? Some of the other things that we're looking at is when it comes to children, maybe a playground that's out there, that's a place where if someone wanted to go out there and do walks, and they want to have their kids out there, if they wanted to have a family event, you have a safe place where you can stow up the kids and they can have a pretty good time.
So, so with that in mind, we have the RV park there. And how much does it get used, Joseph?
I don't have the exact numbers. I'd have to get back to you on that. But it is the most used facility out there by far.
It's the only one we invite somebody to. The bathrooms and everything else is locked. The
Roger
gates are
that.
locked. So
So, it's a pretty nice RV setup out there, Back when when my kids were in 4-H and in the fairs and stuff, I would stay there for the week, with that. It's a pretty nice setup. Have you thought about doing anything additional to the RV park, just like you're talking like a playground setup or anything like that? I mean, there's probably some opportunities there we can incorporate with that RV park as well, do you think?
Chairman, Supervisor Klein, absolutely. So we've had some soft conversations about bringing in shade, how we want to do that, if it's, some of it's vegetation, some of it's man-made structures. But also, currently there is a very small playground. But what we'd be looking at is bringing in something substantially larger than what's there. Really give some diversity from age group and personalities. But I think if we look at what is the high use and we look at some of those things, not to only just draw people in, but the high use that's currently going, there's definitely opportunities to improve and make it better.
Thanks.
All right.
So just to add a little bit on this slide here, by the way, I think the RV area can use an upgrade. I don't know if there's ramadas out there or a place to barbecue. But actually, when you start to think about the playground, there should be a playground in that area. that anybody can use, including some family gets to the RV park and they saw a little note as they were driving up, playgrounds this way, arena this way, RV park this way. They say, hey, kids, later on we'll walk down to the playground, but we wouldn't need a playground for the RV.
Right.
We can have a larger playground for anyone to use. But signage and those kind of things would be important. And I think that, I drove through the RV and to me it looked a little bit stark. I think trees, we need to think about trees as we move forward. But that's the whole purpose of this discussion. We don't have all the answers today, but we're proposing that we should be tasked to go get those answers and bring them back to the board on a future date. But an interesting thing about this slide, in the middle, it talks about review trends in fairgrounds. So they paid an engineer, an architectural firm to come to the table and tell them, this is the trends in the United States for fairgrounds. And guess what? When we read it, we get it for free, okay? So we need to go back and look at this 30-page document and see what other information they provided as we start to put a little bit of meat on the skeleton that we're gonna get today. But it's just, there's a lot of information. I think there's more than enough information. And I think that there's more than enough prospects for us to pursue that we can put a master plan, I think, in a relatively short period of time.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's actually a benefit that the fairgrounds are in the condition that they're in. Because if they were better than they are, then we would be more reluctant to move things, tear things down, start over. So this is a reset to me. We've gone from a horse arena or a horse track to now a whole different idea of what we're gonna do. And yes, this is the start, but I would also like to see this project seen to the end more quickly than 10 years or something like that. I think that we should try and get it moving as quick as we can, come up with a master plan. So I think the first thing we need to do is say, this is how much land we have, this is what we want to keep, this is what we can change, these are options. What, you know, are we going to put in a ball field? Are we going to put in a playground, a mini golf? Are we going to put in something for motocross? Are we going to do something, you know, and just kind of come up with some of those ideas. What kind of venue do we need if we're going to have a concert? And I mean, you can draw, these people can draw a lot of people into town with a major name in a concert too. So that maybe like sort of retired, you know, one of those older guys, or some of the guys that are, what do they call them? They're not really the Rolling Stones, but they're the, some kind of band anyway. They act like the Rolling Stones. And those kind of things. So once we have a master plan, like you're saying, like, okay, let's talk about it, then we can come up with a cost, and then we can say, let's get this on a schedule and get it going, annually funded so much until we're there. Because this could draw a lot of people. This could really be nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tim, do you got anything to add before I do?
Fairgrounds have been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. So I'm just sitting back, just thoroughly enjoying the interest and the motivation and the willingness to move forward, because I've been pushing this button for 6 years. And it's great to see the pendulum moving just a little bit. So it's good. I'm just sitting back enjoying the interest.
No, I agree. You know, and as we go through this morning and we talk about this too, and I understand what you're saying, Steve, and I'm right there with you. What we do with the fairgrounds and basically the fairgrounds and the Veterans Retreat both, kind of is gonna set the stage what we're gonna need for staffing to manage this. You know, when you talk about events and when you talk about planning and organizing and things like that, that's a big bite. And I think that's real important for us up here today, is for us to be willing to take that step to say, yeah, we're gonna do this, you know, and whatnot. So, so I think in the back of my mind as I'm hearing all this going on and everything, because everything that's been said so far as events and planning and this and that and what can be done there is true. There's a lot that can be done there. But it's gonna take somebody, or maybe more than somebody's, to do it. So just something to keep in the back of our minds before this is over with. Maybe we can address that more. Joseph?
No,
Good
it's,
going?
yep. Thank you. So on the next slide, something that we're gonna be, this is just kind of keeping it light. Just like Homer was saying, this is kind of to provoke our thoughts and how we're gonna move forward with some of this. So just a basic SWOT was the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, threats, to kind of spark our imagination and our thoughts with some of the strengths for county leadership support, community support, availability of space. Weaknesses, lack of comprehensive long-term plan. Good news is we're starting to drive forward with that. Opportunities, increase year-round utilization. And threats or challenges would be probably a better fit, would be the proximity to DOC. But there again, this isn't the limit to the list. This is just to provoke that thought process. And kind of push it into a comprehensive or far-reaching plan of action. Fairgrounds Master Plan will help provide a comprehensive plan to promote tourism and offer a recreational venue for the residents of Gila County. Some of those things that we're going to look at establishing within that master plan are a long-term goal, vision, project scope with ownership, define roles and responsibilities, project schedule and list of deliverables, risk assessment, and also a communication plan to be able to support it. Now, when it comes to defining the roles and responsibilities, that's an extremely part to make sure that we're actually moving forward with some of this stuff and also having projection of those dates with the schedule. And the communication plan, be able to know when we're going to be coming back to the board, when we're going to have updates, when we're going to have meetings. That way everybody's informed.
So for me, one of the things, you know, when you talk about the DOC part of it, one of the things there is it's kind of an advantage having them right there as well, because as you well know, you have the crews coming over from DOC to help on a lot of projects. I believe the kennel down there, they do as well, right?
Roger that.
And so, I mean, I've heard comments from people over the past that, yeah, it's really close to the prison, yada, 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 but to my knowledge, we haven't ever had an issue, and knock on wood, we never will. But, so I see it in one sense as kind of a benefit to some extent, so.
Chairman and board, I took it off, I put it on, I took it off, I put it on, I said, maybe I should put lack of funding in there. This is just an idea, we're sharing an idea of the early, when we have a discussion with a large group, we talk about these kind of things, and we don't get bogged down in them. Actually, when you see 6 items in here, actually, if you go to the textbooks, there are many more, but they're kind of like mean the same thing. These are 6 critical items that we have listed here, and you don't do them sequential. You work on the mission first, and then you do all the rest all simultaneously. Okay, it's not about a sequence. I thought it important that when you think about a master plan, it's not a strategic plan, it's not a business plan. It's a little bit different. It's kind of like a plan of action. And I thought it important. I read that somewhere, and I said, you know, we want it to be a plan of action. We want results from this as quickly as we can, but not so quick that we don't do the work that should be done. So the next chart is going to talk about time, and without consulting with too many, I picked 2 numbers. But today we can talk a little bit more about whether those numbers are too short, too long, or do we add some flexibility to them or whatever. But again, this is just an idea. And actually, in fact, some of these are not my ideas. They belong to Melissa and Christina.
So,
Yes.
Tim, back in the day, Joe Levine was there and in charge of the fairgrounds. Did he have a separate crew for the fairgrounds, or was it just kind of whoever he could get for a particular day, or how'd
Yeah.
that work?
A lot of times it was Joe and I was the crew. There for a while, we had Del Nagari, so there was 3 of us, but we had a lot of activities. You know, there was something at the fairgrounds almost every weekend. So that building, I mean, I don't know how many times I've mopped that floor. But, so there was enough going on to sustain that. And Joe lived out there at the time, so there was, you know, he was there 24/7 unless he had other things going. And, you know, so affordability, you know, I've thought about that too. Is I do know that we have positions open in other areas of the county. We'll never fill them. You know, I mean, I think the road crew's got what, like 14 openings? And they've never had that many employees. And so, you know, we have positions open. And so I think are some of these positions that have never been filled or never will be filled, does that position need to roll over to a different area to where it can be effective? You know, I'm not taking anything away from the road crew, because I know we're shorthanded and I know we need people, but we don't need 25 people. And if we've got 25 positions, well, we'll never fill 25 positions and maybe don't need to. So I think, you know, as a board, I'm asking staff to kind of look and see what open positions do we have available that may not be necessary for that particular facility, that we could use that funding for the fairgrounds, for a recreational director, or more help for maintenance that would be under, you know, under your position, to where we have somebody out there. I think that, you know, it's like, okay, we need to create another 5 positions, which is gonna put a burden on our budget of another $250,000 a year. I'm wondering, let's look at positions. Do we have $250,000 of positions open now that we're never gonna fill? I don't know that, but I'm just saying, I think something like that could be beneficial, and looked at, as far as funding going forward. You know, as well as management. It's to me, in a lot of the positions, you know, we have one person with 85 things underneath them, which creates bottlenecking, and we're not being able to be effective. So I'm thinking, like the fairgrounds, what part of county does this need to go under, so it's not put under, you know, I mean, facilities, okay, how many things, how overburdened are you gonna be if all of a sudden we give you, you know, here's the fairgrounds, here's a lot more projects? Okay, like I say, funding for management, or is there a better department that could have more time for managing a new facility? I don't know, but those are questions that I have that could help this work, instead of handing it over to somebody that's already burdened and burden the budget more. Well, nothing's gonna happen. So you're looking at the big picture. I think this is great, and I love the interest, but I don't want the interest to fall, because we're putting it under management that is already got too many emails to answer in the morning already, so 5 more or 10 more from the fairgrounds is never gonna get answered. And like I say, for funding, do we have positions that we put out there just hopefully someday, but if they're not getting filled, let's move them to something that would create less burdens. So not only the facility, I'm looking at financing and management of the facility, because if we say, yeah, let's go rock and roll, we need to figure out who can take the ball and run it over the goal line. Because if we don't have that, then we can make all the decisions we want, but for it to go forward, I think we need to look at managing and where would be best management. You know, a recreational director perhaps, and that's all they did is work on recreational direction for the entire county, perhaps, and instead of just shove it under somebody else that's already here, that's already overburdened.
So one of the things that keeps popping up in my mind, this is really good, you guys. I know for last minute deal, those ladies did an awesome job. And so I think, and one of the things that comes up in my mind right off the bat as we're looking at all this and looking at the options that are out there is, as a board, as us three, are we gonna want this to be self-sustaining, or are we gonna wanna subsidize it? And I think as we go into this and build this more and more, I think we ought to really kind of keep that in the back of our minds and see where, as a board, we wanna go with it. You know, cause you're talking about two different things. If we build a setup out there, for it to sustain itself, it's gonna take a lot of work. And it's gonna take a time frame to get it established and going. So more than likely, I would say we're gonna be throwing some money into it to get it off the ground at least. But what, you know, and I'm sure Homero's looking for it today, is what is our end game? Are we willing to say we'll make as much money off of it as within reason as we can? And we'll, you know, subsidize the rest, you know, pay for the rest, or how are we gonna do it? You know?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Tim completely that we're gonna have to have a director for the fairground, and he's gonna have to have his own crew. If we're gonna build this thing up to the point that we're talking about, it's gonna take a full-time staff to maintain it, operate it, and get the schedule going and get all of that. And unlike a swimming pool, I believe this could make money. This is an opportunity to make money. There's some projects that we do that are just never gonna make money. They're just a money pit in sense. It's just a project that the community wants, and so we provide it, it's a service, whatever. And I mean like a pool. A pool never makes money. You can't charge enough money to maintain a pool. So it's subsidized, and hopefully we could get to the point where we actually could not only fund it all, but be very comfortable with it, where we're not having to pay. But that's gonna take a little time.
Roger that.
So when you guys were looking around at these other places, Joseph, what were they doing? Were they making enough money to be self-sustaining, or were they just roll it into the county programs and earn what money they can and keep it going?
No, that's a great question. So we weren't able to pull that or extract it from any other input or websites. However, that is something that as we progress forward, we can certainly reach out to those different counties and have a deeper discussion of, hey, you know, how do you guys handle this? How does this roll over? What are some of your successes and some of your challenges that way that we can kind of nail down some of that information?
A lot of opportunities out there. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to put the thought out there that we want to get in the money-making business, because we're in the constituent business and we take care of our people and their money. Right. And so, yeah, if we charge a fee for recreational use, I don't ever want to get in the money-making business, but if it can be a non-for-profit, or, okay, we make enough to pay for that position. That's like charging for building permits. Okay, they're already paying taxes, but here they're paying for building permit. How does that break down to staff? Don't know. But like I say, if we create recreational, you know, I don't really, I mean, if it does well, good. I want to turn it back into the facility or into the savings for the constituents, not to be in the profit business.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think there will be a charge. I think it will cost us up front. But like I say, have we already set aside money that we're not using in a particular facility that we wouldn't be adding to our budget? We would just be restructuring what budget we do have now. I don't know, but that would be something for staff to look at and let us know. You know, what positions are open? Are we gonna fill them? Are we not gonna fill them? And does that leave us a position for a full-time employee for the fairgrounds?
So that leads another question for you.
Or up north.
Yeah, that leads another question for you. Back then, when Joe was there, you guys didn't have the opportunity to have any kind of work crews from the jail or anything like that, did you?
No, we had Arky's Angels a few times out there, but not much. No, it was mostly all us. And then when a function came, then we borrowed from the road crews, because back then the supervisors had their own construction companies. Darn, I wish we
was gonna say,
can't go backwards.
that's a
but-
whole nother discussion, but-
Yeah, but yeah, then you know we needed help during the rodeo and the races for equipment operators and things of that nature. But pretty much we took care of all the coolers, all the stoves, anything to set up for a fair or things of that nature. That was our job, and that's one of the reasons I worked out there is because we got a lot of overtime. I got a lot of time off. I mean, we might work 10 days, 12 hours a day, but then we got time off when in the slack time. So
Sure. So a lot of those things that they did probably back then is what DOC's doing for us now, right? Like your regular, just everyday maintenance, mopping floors, tending to this and that.
Roger that, to include event setup, and the list just goes on. So we definitely utilize them to the max.
And we do pay them a little bit of money, right? I mean, DOC, do we pay them?
There is an amount that gets approved by the board that takes care of it.
Yeah.
It's pennies on the dollar.
Right. So I mean, that's a huge benefit for us right off the bat is that as well, having those folks around.
Absolutely.
Mr. Humphrey, you said something about there's more land available out there? Do you have details on that?
I do believe there is, and I don't know that that's on our work session today to discuss. But yes, there is more available land. I do believe that I've asked the county manager to look into, and so perhaps at some time that would be a good discussion on a future work session to see kind of what involved in that as well.
I would say it would be because, this is just a preliminary start this morning on this. And if we're looking at any kind of additional properties or anything like that to roll it into this program, we need to be discussing it sometime. Whether or not it materializes or not, who knows, but it needs to be part of the equation to some extent.
Yeah, I think that would be up to Mr. Minlove on when he felt comfortable bringing it to us as a possibility and what it might entail. Is that correct, Mr. Minlove? Okay.
Yeah. You want to continue on, Joseph?
Roger that.
Chairman and Board, before we reach the last slide, I think you pointed out, Chairman Klein, that proximity to DOC is probably an opportunity, not a threat. And that we need to shift it over to that other side, see how we can take more advantage of just the fact that they're there. Up here on the master planning bullet list, we talk about defined roles and responsibilities, and what Supervisor Humphrey brought up as to who does what is exactly that item. The risk assessment, we were looking at the next group of slides that we're going to see on the Veterans Retreat. On risk assessment, you would see a pro forma financial statements right next to it, meaning somebody tell us how much it's going to cost and whether or not it's sustainable or not. That's an excellent point that was brought up by the board. And it could be a mixture that at the beginning, it's subsidized a little bit by general fund. But to the extent that we can make these kind of activities self-sustaining and self-funded would be beneficial as well. And that's what we need to look at. If we were offering these facilities, what would be the revenues that we would receive and what are the costs? And no matter which way it turns out, we need to know that before we go into it. We should always know that, okay? What that pro forma financial statement looks like as we enter into these projects, some idea of revenue and cost, so that when we step into it, we already know what we're stepping into. And hopefully that's part of what the team brings back next go around.
Thank you, Homer. So here again, we just have a couple of line items for the master planning to be able to get the board's input. And essentially lay out, hopefully, a progressive plan stepping forward. Again, board provides input, which is what we're doing today. Select a large team, 15 to 25, to develop an outline for the master plan. Team would include stakeholders, community staff members with needed expertise such as 4-H, etc. A large team would report out to the Board of Supervisors in 8 weeks for board input. There again, to emphasize what Homer was talking about is to get your input. Is the 8 weeks something that we want to hold fast to? Do we want to possibly look at something a little bit further out, or just have a little bit of flexibility within that? Utilize survey and focus groups to solicit community input. Assign small teamwork to add needed level of detail to the master plan and submit to the Board of Supervisors for approval in a 4-month period.
You want to start with it, Tim?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I'm just wondering, do we need 8 weeks? Do we need 2 months to get some interested people together to give us a report? And if we do, I mean, that's fine. I'm just wondering, would it lose steam in 8 weeks? Or do we need 8 weeks for the key people or people that we would like on this to get a schedule organized to get 15 or 25 people together? Because I understand probably the people that we're gonna wanna get together with are busy already. And so do we need that much time for their schedules to work for us to get input to come back? And do we need that much time? I think at this point, if you need more or less, that's fine. We need to start contacting people and getting the schedules together, I guess. Because you have kind of people in mind of who we want to contact to put this development team together? Is that a nod yes or a nod no?
If I can help out a little bit, it's a very aggressive schedule.
Okay,
Because everybody's busy, we would be looking for some folks from the towns. We would be looking for our experts in the county. We would be looking for 4-H. We would be looking for the fairground committee. And all of these folks work, and we would be inviting them to a couple of long meetings at the beginning. And it's a very aggressive schedule. We could march out with the intention of try to make it happen like this, with some ability for us to adjust the schedule as we move forward. But the whole idea was to get it started, okay? It's to get it started and get it going. And so we put down those, in my opinion, very aggressive. One of the things that I think the committee should do is put in a phone call to one of these outfits that's done something like this. Somebody else needs to research the cost issues. If someone has like a financial statement they can share with us on their cost, it would help us a lot. There's a lot of things that we don't know about. What does it cost to bring a band in here, and what would be a ticket sale, and to just get an idea for what needs to be done. Both of these are very aggressive, both the 8 weeks and the 4 months.
okay, I guess part of my question was, select a large team, 15 to 25 people. Do we have a list of 15 to 25 people?
Supervisor Humphrey, no, not at this time.
Okay, then that's a first creation.
Roger that.
And I would like to help with that list, or I'd like to see the list and add to it, or some of that, because, I mean, I'm local, I'm here, I know people that are entertainers, as far as the music end of the deal, and other people like that. So I guess the first thing before we know whether we can do it in 8 weeks or not is we need to create a list of people to call to see when they can be available for meetings. Is that correct?
So an idea or thought or a suggestion to run by you, Tim, what if each one of us three took an amount number of people to point on this so-called team?
Yeah, and I think that'd be great. Let's make a list, and And if I get three of the same people you get, well, then that's great. But yeah, I think everybody, Mr. Menlove, you're active, you've been with the cities and counties and everybody, so I think if several of us started making a list, if you wanna, and maybe if we can, sit down and start picking our brain to put names together that would be, maybe good to start on this list, and some are gonna go off, some more are gonna come on. And then some are gonna say, why didn't you put me on the list? Well, that's because you didn't volunteer, you just volunteered, so now you're going on the list, type thing. So I think that'd be a good way to start is, let's think of people that could help us with this project. Like you say, members of the 4-H and youth groups, but also entertainers, also, key people from the area that are involved in different things. So, yeah, we need to create a list, and so however you would like to proceed with that, then I would think, yeah, 8 weeks is an aggressive schedule, Benz, we don't even know who we're calling yet.
So my first question is, for you or Romero, either one, why the 15 to 25? Is there a reason for that?
Yes, the intention was large enough to reflect all the interested parties. Later on, for the second group, it says, number 5 says assign, you would pick a subset of that group and charge them. Many of them would be our staff because they would have to be crunching numbers, doing work to build the master plan. And so later on, it could become a smaller group. But I think at the beginning, we want as large a representation of the county as possible.
Okay, so, I mean, with that in mind, if we just started right off the bat with about 5 people each, that leaves us a little bit of latitude that the ones we didn't think of, we can put them in there. What do you think? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be sort of I don't know how we would do that. It's a little bit like the committee we formed for the redistricting. So the 5 I'm gonna choose are gonna be from sort of I guess, the north. I mean,
That's not an issue. This is a county project.
yeah.
So that's.
So,
I'm
but what
good
I
with
mean
that.
is, I don't know if there'll be traveling involved or how we would do Zoom meetings maybe or something to where they,
Yeah.
would be convenient for them. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'll try and come up with 5 names.
Does that sound reasonable to you guys?
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, absolutely. I think that's a great way for us to establish the board and to get it across countywide, I think is gonna be extremely important. And Supervisor Christensen, we can certainly set up so that it can be flexible, because I know it might be a challenge to be able to travel, of course. So any way we can support that communication, we can absolutely set it up in a way that helps everybody. And also just for Supervisor Humphrey, you mentioned the 8 weeks. And for sure, I agree with Homer, it is very aggressive, but the intent is to be able to not only take a shot in the dark of a date or a time frame, but to be able to hold something that we have a target. So the 8 weeks, if we don't hit the 8 weeks, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we should understand why we didn't hit the 8 weeks, and okay, well, we're looking at another 4 weeks, and this is why, and this is what we're gonna do, and this is the intent behind it. So it's just more of a target, maybe not necessarily a deadline, but as we continue to move forward, we'll be able to refine those dates.
So I like aggressive, and what we're doing is we're coming up on our budget here pretty quick that we're gonna be putting in place. Our last work session, when we were talking about ARPA money and money like that, it kind of came out where we're looking at a chunk of change already that may go through for the fairgrounds. And so the sooner we get started and get going, the better off we are. I don't want us, personally, I wouldn't want us to sit here for 6 months or whatever just to spin our wheels and not get started. That money's gonna be in place after July, to whatever extent, who knows, we haven't voted on it or done all that, but it's gonna be something we can start with, I'm sure.
Roger that.
What do you guys think?
I agree. I mean, we're just getting it going, so just get it going, get started, and come back to us when you have something. I know the schedule is aggressive and all that, but I know it's a goal. And it may,
Roger
you
that.
may meet the goal, you may not meet the goal, but it's better that we really get the plan pulled together with suggestions, and then we can whittle it down from there, or up, whatever.
Roger that.
Mr. Chairman and Board, I heard Joseph use the word board for this group. I would call it the Advisory Committee for the Fairgrounds Master Plan. Okay?
Good idea. So, would you guys be interested in picking a time frame that we can work on our 5 people each? Bring it back into a work session and we can present it to each other when we can discuss it? And see if we got any duplicates, whatever we got. You guys wanna do that?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd say let's just turn the list over to staff, and
Okay, so that
and
brings.
if we cross over, then that's okay.
That brings another question I had earlier and I'd forgot till you brought that up. If we do this and we're gonna do it and we're gonna put it together, do we need a leader in-house to kind of keep this directed and going with this group of people? What do you think, James?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of thoughts based on your conversation. One about this preliminary meeting of 15 to 25 that are perhaps based on your input of having essentially an open house at the fairgrounds. I'm looking at a date early in August or something that will fit in between different council schedules, but an intent to invite all of the mayors and city councils for the entire county, as it is a countywide project, to invite stakeholders of the different youth groups and those specifically to a open house that may include a roundtable discussion of input from all these different groups, the large corporations that are interested in seeing quality of life issues, what they might have as input and what they would like to see as far as a community that, just for example, FMI, that what their thoughts are for a community, what enhancements there are, and what things that we can work with them in a 3P partnership type activity of being able to work together and promote and improve the quality of life for not just our citizens, but as you've been talking about extensively, of having an event center and activities that bring in those tax dollars that will pay for it. There was a discussion of, do we pay for it or do we consider we have to do a subsidy? With what I'm hearing is that potentially for any operating costs that we should plan on and expect that it will cover any operating costs as far as utilities, as far as personnel, staff that we have to maintain the facility, that we should be, our focus should be to the point that we plan to have the events, to schedule the events and do all those things where the operating costs are covered. As far as these capital investments, that is probably a different story. That's a decision that you as a board make as far as capital investment into up north, into Young with the veteran site, or to the fairgrounds. And so I'm looking for a date probably early August, to have open house for the whole facility, invite people. And we could see from those people that come who express interest as we talk to them, invite them, who has interest, that we could be able to select, whittle that down to what, if it's 15 to 25, or maybe it's 12. Just whatever would be the ideal function, to not be too large that it just grinds to a halt, as frequently does with very large groups, but is enough that we can garner interest and then we can have buy-in to whatever projects go on, that they will be sustained by those entities that are representative. in that group that we have specifically assigned as the Gila County Fairgrounds Committee, or whatever it might be. I'll just say that there, for the fair itself, we do have Gila County Fair, Inc., a nonprofit that is established. And I see that we have on, that we have our fair that is, it starts in a countdown here on the bottom, 85 days, 21 hours, 49 minutes, and 30 seconds. So there's a countdown. They're putting that together for the fair this coming year in September 22nd through the 25th. And so we need to be able to sustain that group to put on the fair and not detract from that so much that can be done, because Fair Inc. or the Fair Group Commission is going to want to be heavily involved in this as well. So just a few thoughts of having an open house, whittle that down to if it's 15 to 25 or whatever you as a board determine would be the most appropriate and successful, most likely to succeed level. One final thought is that we do have and have had for this last year 3 positions that have been established for recreation in Gila County. The 3 positions of a director or manager of recreational sites. It's mostly my fault of not settling on a job description of what exactly that is, with the veteran side evolving and fairgrounds. This input is very helpful, that I believe we should go ahead and get that. And based on your discussion today, we need to get that position finalized, what the title is, job description, and then get that posted, get that position hired, so we have again, what I would call a champion, or somebody that can drive these things that you've all brought up here. That there has to be a driver that's committed and has dedicated time to commit to that. It's not going to work if we try to say, oh, well, Joseph, you're taking care of how many 60 buildings that we have throughout the county, but you got to fit this in to specifically work on the fairgrounds. It's not fair to him, not fair to his staff. We need somebody that can devote all their time to events and to the facilities for events for the county. That is in the budget, is carrying forward into the budget into 23. Should you choose to approve that budget, the positions are there. And Supervisor Humphrey, to your point of, do we need all these positions? And this is the first year that I'm aware of that we've looked at positions that have been vacant and saying, okay, we need to do something for employees that are here. We need to do something to bring on employees because we're underpaid or whatever, you don't have certain things. But we have reduced our employee counts, our full-time employees. We reduce those counts in order to have the money to afford, like in the jail, they reduced their position count in the jail by 4 positions in order to come up with a new plan, a pay plan for the detention officers, that we can hopefully hire and sustain detention officers for the jail. So I really appreciate your discussion, your expressing your real interest that we need to move forward on this. Should have been done 5 years ago, as has been mentioned. We are to the point where there's no more excuses, and if we didn't do it 5 years ago, the best day to do it is today. And so we'll set up a date that we can find for an open house roundtable discussion, and then go through with these activities over the next couple months.
So I think the open house is good for discussion and stuff. And I want to hear your guys' input on this. And I go back to like the 5 for each of us to pick. Chances are very well that if we put names on a list, there's going to be somebody off of a 4-H. I can already tell you there will be.
Mm-hmm.
Or there'll be somebody off of a fair committee. There'll be somebody from somewhere else, which would still leave us some folks that if we do miss, we can add on there too.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have somebody, and I don't know, Joseph, chime in, but it almost, and I may be wrong on thinking on this, but it almost seems like we need somebody from within that could kind of take this group of folks to keep it organized and directed, you know, and consolidate the thoughts and consolidate the ideas and whatever else it is and keep it going. I mean, am I on the right page right there? What do you guys think? Or do you want to find somebody from the outside that could take that role? I'm not saying that there isn't, I'm just.
I think it's gonna be a full-time role, and whether it's internal or coming from outside, we need someone that's,
Yeah, just so I make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying to run the fairgrounds and all that. I'm just saying to kind of keep tabs on this group of folks, a leader for this group of folks.
okay. Presently, it's gonna have to come from internal. We don't have time to hire someone and accomplish this schedule at all, in my opinion. So we need to try and redirect someone to become that guy or gal.
Okay, yeah, again, I don't want to pile it under somebody that already gets 5,000 emails, and so it doesn't get done. So I guess I have a question for Jessica, if she's still on.
Yes, I'm here.
Would it be a conflict of interest if I was on this board to kind of oversee the fairgrounds as a supervisor? I'm sure some of these decisions are going to be coming before the board. So if I was part of this, would that be a conflict of interest to where I would have to excuse myself from a Board of Supervisors decision?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, I don't believe it would be a conflict of interest. Of course, you wouldn't be able to make any sort of decisions that the board would need to make. You would then have to take that to the board, but no, I don't believe it would be a conflict of interest for you to serve on the board.
On the committee.
On the committee?
Yes, on the committee, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'm looking for where to go with this list to contact, to set up the meeting. And I don't know if the county manager's office has the time to take this on. I know that our assistant county manager has no staff. Where are we at with you, and do you have staff availability to continue or to take a list and run with it as far as organizing these meetings? Do you have staff enough?
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, currently our bandwidth is maxed out. So if this was tasked to us, there would be something else removed. So if this is determined to be a priority that we would like to, that you'd like our team to take care of, we'd be happy to, but just keep in mind.
That was the question.
Yeah.
That wasn't here. Take it and do a good job with it.
Roger
That was an ask.
So, yeah, there would be something else getting removed from our venue.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we need to see where we're going with this. And, I have to maybe, Terry, how burdensome, I know you have a lot going on, but as far as working with this list to organize original meeting until we can see where we're going with this, do you have time? Will you take the time and I'll help? That's why I asked about the conflict of interest before I asked you, before I volunteered, because like I say, it's one of my pet peeves. And so to hand off one of my pet peeves to someone else and not try to participate, I don't feel that would show the interest that I really have. So, we're not gonna say that we will manage this group forever, but we will help get this group, to a meeting and get a ball rolling downhill for someone else to poke with a stick, I guess.
So my 2 cents on this is not to task facilities with any more than they've already got.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't do the county any justice.
Right.
I think personally, if you want to be on the committee or part of this group, I think it's fine. I think it goes with a lot of things. It's a county project,
It is.
you know, so it includes all three of us sitting here. And so, but I think somebody just needs to be on it to keep it going. You're gonna have an open house. There's gonna be some more people that's gonna wanna be a part of it. I know that. I know for a fact we're not gonna get everybody that wants to be involved. So there's gonna be more people to be involved. I think when it comes to decision, whether or not it's putting the people on these teams or the projects or the dollar amounts, all decisions have to come through the board here.
Oh, I agree. But like I say, the original list and trying to get these 15 or 20 people to a meeting to see where this meeting's gonna go and where we're gonna go. Like I said, that's why I asked Terry, because it can come to us and we'll help organize this first meeting and see where it goes and see where we delegate from there on what we need to do and where we're going with it.
So I've got 5 people on the list already. And
Okay,
so
then if you
with
don't
this-
mind, can you get them to Terry?
Yeah, since I can't just hand it to you, yeah. James?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I do know that Ms. Grice has compiled a list. It's at least a page long, maybe a page and a half or whatever. She gave it to me and there it has stopped. So there is a list. If you wanted to, if we can get a list from Ms. Grice, pass it around and take a look at it and then add some people to that or just get your thoughts on the list.
So one thing I want to throw out there too, and this stems back some time ago. The Fair and Racing Commission that was assigned to the fairgrounds back when and had been there forever and a day. Billy Burns was one of them. My last discussion with him was he still was interested in helping out wherever he could. And I think that's out of respect for Billy. I think that's a good lick if he still wants to do it. I mean, he's been a part of that function out there for years. You know, we're not doing the horse racing anymore and whatnot, but, and he may not want to. He's one of them that's on my list from those discussions that I had with him back a couple of years ago or whatever. So, but, and whatever Sherry's got on there for folks would be well worth looking at.
Mr. Chairman, I do know the Fair and Racing Commission, they are devoted for decades to fairgrounds, to the racetrack. And I do believe they would want to be involved, but just with racing having gone away, that's kind of what the impetus for them. But they do have money that they still have available in their funds.
That's right.
That I'm sure they would want to invest in the fairgrounds in some way. So an active participation, active involvement from the Fair and Racing Commission would be a natural, and their
Yeah.
interest would be very helpful.
It would, so, and if I'm not mistaken, it was several thousands of dollars, so. I
Tens
mean,
of thousands.
Yeah, so I think coming up with at least 15 names between us three, and then looking what the open house would bring, what folks come out of the woodworks, I think you're gonna have your 20 to 25 people.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I'd like to see Sherry's list, and I think, that will probably include some of the names that we have, and if not, then we can come back and forth. And then we'll get that list and start making contacts to get a meeting together and get input on where we're gonna go with this. And Terry, thank you very much for your willingness to help in the fairgrounds and getting this thing rolling. I do have a question also is, okay, we've got a fair coming up. I don't know who's on the committee or what the fair is gonna consist of. And I have people saying, are we gonna have a fair this year? And I say, well, I think we are, but I'm not sure. Are we gonna have a band? Are we gonna have a circus? Are we gonna have what? And I tell them, I don't know. I don't like saying, I don't know. So if someone from the fair committee could get with me, if it's not gonna come up for a work session in front of the board of supervisors, I'd like to know what's planned for the fair this year.
Sure.
Is that something we need to have a work session on, just to see what their plans are and how they're gonna go about this year, or?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, Supervisors, I would check with the Fair Board and see, they do a really good job. They do it all on their own time. And I just want them to feel the freedom to, that we appreciate their efforts and, I don't know, sometimes coming back and reporting,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing. So maybe we certainly need to do that, and we'll get that information. It might be more informal than a work session.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, I don't wanna control them. I just wanna know what their plans are, what's going on.
That's fair.
Cause I do get questions and I tell them, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I believe under the direction that I haven't been told because this isn't a regular board meeting, but your thoughts are that we need to get somebody to do this. So I will commit to, by the end of this week, having a position title and it graded and job description so that we can get it posted and out by next Tuesday, by the beginning of next week. I think there's a minor holiday on Monday.
Might be.
Might be. So that we can get it out next week posted, and that means 4 weeks minimum to be able to hire somebody to put it out for a couple weeks for invitations to, for applicants, and then a couple weeks to get interviews, probably 4 weeks at absolutely quickest if we have an internal candidate, 6 weeks to 8 weeks to bring somebody on board if it's an external person.
So when that announcement comes out, can you send me a copy of that?
Certainly.
And I'll put it on my Facebook and whatever else. We need to spread it around the county as far and wide as we can,
Okay.
so.
Typically don't do this, but I can, once we get that job description, if there's some little tweaks you might want to have, I can send that job description to each of you and tweak it back to us, to myself, to HR, and make sure we get it expansive enough, yet detailed enough to get what we want, what we need, what we expect, but still get the breadth of what this person may need to cover. So it'd be good to have your input.
Are we good on the fairgrounds? Does that help you guys any at all?
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, absolutely. So all the input and the guidance, I think it puts us in a pretty good spot to start tracking something forward.
Tim, you good?
I'm good. I feel good. I appreciate the interest. Terry, again, I appreciate your willingness to help get this meeting together to see where we're going with it until we can get further organized. And it's a good meeting.
So do you guys want a work session on our list of people coming up soon, or to put it out there, or
I
are we
think
good to
I'm
go?
just gonna start contacting them and have a meeting.
Okay,
Cause I think if I get 35 names, or Terry gets 35 names, I'm calling all of them to this meeting. The only ones that, if there's if there's 2 or 3 people on everybody's list, they're only gonna get one call. But like I say, if through the list, if we get 35 people, I'm gonna call all 35 of them because they all got interest.
So what we can do, because we have contacts for these that I just gave to Kathy, is I can help you on that and verify whether or not they're willing to do it, and then give you the names, rather than giving you something that's gonna bail out or whatever. And-
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll-
that's
I'll-
good to,
I'll
that's
do
good to
that.
verify before we,
Okay,
before we get the list. If, it'd be nice to know that when we call them, what's gonna be welcomed and,
right, and what ain't.
yeah.
How about you,
Who
Steve?
gave you my name?
I'm
Yeah.
good. The thing that I'm encouraged about is how this isn't just one person's project. This is all of us, and we're all on the same page, so
The only way we can succeed is as a board
we
here.
have to
The only
do
way.
it unified. And so I'm completely in tune with the countywide concept of projects. This project will help Gila County, and I back it completely.
Okay, so you ready to dive into the next one, Joseph?
Roger that, just
That-
before.
Just one second. James, what time do we have to be out of here by for the fairgrounds?
Probably should plan it quarter till, or at least 10 minutes
Okay,
to get out there.
you got a little bit of time, Joseph.
We can track something forward pretty good. Omero, did you have something or? No. Okay,
So we can wrap up, we might shoot for a quarter till.
we can do that.
Do we have paperwork on this?
I think they're getting it for us,
Okay.
I believe. Christina's getting it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I like it. Let's just do it.
Be careful what you say there, Steve. Joseph's got big ideas on this
Yeah,
one.
that's the fastest I think I've tracked something forward. All right, Chairman, Board of Supervisors, what we're stepping into now is gonna be the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, but I'd like to take a moment to thank the team, Melissa and Christina. They really did put together some pretty good slides here. So we're all pretty familiar with the Veterans Retreat. This is just something that we're trying to track forward, trying to put a little more structure to it, a little bit more meat to it, so that way we can have something tangible as we move forward, and we know we are moving forward versus simply talking about it. So the format is going to be very similar as before. We took a couple of examples that we've seen across the U.S. And as we track through it, some of it's just going to be some highlights and some things that they focused on and how they operated. Of course, the Veterans Retreat is a primary focus on supporting veterans and their family members in a nature-based therapeutic setting. Many of the retreats and camps have themes. Many of those themes relate to experiencing connections with the natural world and others who have gone through the same experiences. Often the retreats are offered at little to no cost or are intended to provide the veteran and or family member an opportunity to experience a place and time specifically designated to them. Many offer retreat type lodging with all-inclusive lodging, meals, and a variety of outdoor activities ranging from sitting around the fire pit, hiking, fishing, all-terrain vehicle outing, to equine therapy. Something to really note here is some retreats only offer services to wounded or ill veterans and families, or post 9/11 veterans, or all active duty military veterans. Most of the veteran retreats are 501c3 nonprofits that do the operations. As far as some of those bullet points, a lot of that is going to be determined by the 501c3. They're going to determine how they're going to be wanting to operate, who's going to be the focus group, whether it's going to be wounded or ill veterans and families, or if it's going to be all active duty. So the next slide are some of the examples that I had mentioned earlier. We try to grab from all over the U.S. There's not many retreats like this. which really makes our location really unique. This is almost a regional thing. We got a ranch, Camp Patriot from Montana, Operation Second Chance from Maryland, and Active Heroes from Kentucky. Now, there's a little bit different with the Maryland Operation Second Chance. A lot of their facilities, they go out to these other facilities, which would be similar to the one we're creating, and bring the programs to that and use the site as is. We'll start off with the Patriot, Camp Patriot up in Montana. They're established in 2006, and as mentioned, a 501c3 managed by a board of directors and financially supported via private donors, fundraising activities, and volunteers. It's a 90-acre ranch. In 2014, 1.5 million is dedicated to wounded and disabled veterans. Some of their activities: snowmobile, ice fishing, hiking, and hunting, as you can imagine being up in Montana. Maryland, Operation Second Chance, also a 501c3 managed by board of directors, financially supported via donors, fundraisers, and volunteers. 21 financial statement included 2.6 million of contributions and 1.6 million of expense. Focused retreat and assistance for wounded veterans and their families and caregivers. 1 day or longer retreats and trips and financial assistance that they create. Goal: serve 500 veterans a year. This is one of the examples that we mentioned earlier where they make it very specific, not only to the veteran, but then within that community, typically going off of a rating that's set by the VA. More common, it's about a 70% is what they'll kind of narrow it down. And there's many reasons they do that. One of them is if some of these locations, if they opened it up to all veterans, you'd put a reservation in probably 3 years out. So it's something to keep in mind as we look forward. Active Heroes in Kentucky, also a 501c3, 147-acre retreat. Free use of cabins and outdoor activities, equine and therapy, golf, camp, hiking, support network, event hall rental, planned activities, camping, and cookout. Something to emphasize on this one is that it is free of use. So through the contributions from the 501c3 to the customer, they transfer that. They don't extract that from the customer. So it's a free service. Is there any questions on this?
I'm good.
Sitting pretty good.
Yeah, I have no question, just a comment. I noticed that, the $2 million and some of them, like the contributions, you got, financials of 433K, contributions were 639 in expenses. So, it seems as if a lot of these are getting, like you say, 70% funding, and they're responsible for like 30% of the funding?
No, so that was just a rating system based off of who would be eligible to go there. Homer?
The financial actually, the last two here post their financial statements, you can go look at them.
Oh, okay, good.
And this one here, they had a reserve, so they reached into the reserve, but they try to break even. They're a nonprofit, they have to kind of like break even,
Sure.
okay? And so they either look for more donors or they provide less service. But in that particular year of 2020, I think it was a COVID year, they spent a little bit more than what they got, okay? But they put it from the reserve. The other one had surplus money. The first one, I think, has surplus money. They put close to $1 million in their reserve. And so it depends on what your donors contribute that year.
Yeah, no, good.
Thank you. One more item is if a lot of these facilities, they started very small, 1 to 2 person operations, sometimes not even close to this amount of acreage, and then progressively improved, pulled on more staffing, purchased more land. We're going to be stepping into a significantly different situation, a great opportunity with the amount of acreage that we're going to be taking on. But that comes with some significant challenges. And those challenges are, just to give a very brief example, if they make a small mistake at a two-man operation, that's something that you can easily adjust fire, correct it, and then move forward. We might not have that same kind of leeway when we're going to be stepping into something that's going to be trying to move at 60 miles an hour versus progressively trying to step into it. So there's certainly going to be some challenges. The next slide is something that we've covered before and the Board of Supervisors is very familiar with. The Forest Service, we has leased and will later transfer ownership to Gila County. We're looking at the 230 plus acres. The previous use of a lot of those facilities is known. The primary focus is going to be the 600 square foot admin building. The proposed use is going to be main lodge, check-in, resource rooms, et cetera. Is there any questions that I can get on this one?
Can we run cattle on it?
I think that'll be up to the 501c3.
One thing that I think we have to have as part of the charter is that the historic value of the property needs to be sustained. That no one can make a decision to
Build condos
take that
on it.
away.
Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, that's really good news. Most of the documents that the 501c is kind of looking at putting forward, and a lot of those discussions is holding the heritage, not only to the Forest Service, but some of the ruins and the heritage that goes a lot further back. So good news. The master plan is going to be comprehensive, far-reaching plan of action, similar to what we just went over. Long-term goal, vision, project scope, define roles and responsibilities, project schedule and list of deliverables, risk assessment, and communication plan. There again, just like Homero mentioned earlier, these are the highlights, the necessities. There may be quite a bit more than this. Part of that is kind of going over what that list is and getting a little bit deeper into it. Number 3 is probably the highlights, donor contribution strategy. Who develops the plan? Who do we target? How do we get that started? Staffing to operate, maintain, recruit donors and contributions, select applicants, et cetera. That's going to be part of the 501c, but for sure there's going to be some crossover that may happen for the county, and those are discussions that are going to have to happen later on. How do we get started? We're looking at doing a very similar get off the ground approach as the last slide and for the fairgrounds. This one's going to be a little bit more vague. We still have some construction that we're tracking forward on. We have quite a bit of work to do with that. The 501c3 is going to be running parallel to that. So we don't have clear dates outlined for it, but these are things that we're looking to establish sooner than later, part of that master plan. Homero?
You did a great job. It's a similar approach, but there are different stages of development, and so, you know, based on board input, we should adopt how do we move forward plan.
When do you guys want to start with it? What do you think? Steve, you want to start this one?
Okay, yeah, I like the presentation. I love the property. I love the fact that Woody is very largely responsible for getting all of this done and this process, and so I want to thank him for that. I think we're trying to spend our ARPA money for this project, right, as far as doing a lot of the fix-up. And so developing a master plan, to me, would be the first logical thing to do. I don't know how to put a committee together for this necessarily. I would like to see Woody be involved with that committee as well. Not to steer it, but to bring them up to date on everything that is thought about and planned, and then get started, pick a list of how we're going to progress with it.
Absolutely.
So So for one thing is that when this started back quite a while ago, Tim, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, it wasn't just me. The only reason I was so deeply involved with this because it's in my back door. But it wasn't me. The board at the time had supported this project from the day I brought it up, and we always did all the way through. Me and Kathy steered it around through the channels it had to go, and then some. But so it's been a really good project. But it too is a county project where this can only work with all of us being on board to make it work. Joseph and Kathy have pretty much taken the lead, I would say, on this, and it still has a lot of work to do. I know Joseph has worked with designers or architects and whatnot like that. They've had the public meetings. So what I would like to do when you're saying for me to stay involved as far as this team goes, I'd like to pass that on to these two. And then I can sit here and support it as a board and however we need to go with that. I think from what I've seen Joseph and Kathy doing with this particular project is very well. And I think I'd like to see them just continue with it. Kathy's been working on the 501c3 to get it in place. And I would say that when it comes to the team to kind of look at the master plan, and you guys can chime in here too, is it needs to be vets. It needs to be veterans.
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, absolutely. So when we put this list together, the good news is we pretty much already have a pretty solid list that we've been getting feedback. And that's the good thing is we've continuously went with that same way of thinking, is trying to get as much feedback. We had a couple of surveys already put out, and we're able to get some consensus of, do we need to put a golf course in? Or do we need to take it something a little bit smaller and simple? What are the veterans interested in? What are their families interested in? So the good news is some of this stuff we're already kind of tracking forward. But yes, I agree.
The other thing I'd just throw out before I get to you, Tim, is that when I really look at these two projects, from a county standpoint, they're very important, both of them. There's difference in between them. There's a difference. One is we're looking at the fairgrounds in a sense of what are we going to develop, what's it going to bring to the county, and so forth. This, basically, the county's going to be putting this site in place and bringing it up to standards. And once that's done, I think the people are coming to it. I think once it's set and it's in place, I don't think there's going to be any issue about people using it. And I think that's a big difference right off the bat, where we still may have a little bit of a time lag, but I don't think it'll be very long. So Tim, what do you think?
No, Kathy was reaching for her mic. I
Is she
was
reaching
wondering
for
if
her
she
mic?
was gonna.
Either one of you, whoever wants, go
Had
for
some
it.
input here. No, I've supported this. I've watched it grow. We've been to Washington talking about it and getting things going, and again, it's one of those things I don't want to see fall because of lack of management time and effort. So, kind of like the fairground facilities, thank you for all you're doing, for all the time you're spending on it. But as this animal grows, does it need its own management to work with facilities, to come to the Board of Supervisors on what decisions we need to make with that project? So, I don't want it to end up underneath the pyramid where someone's lack of time creates difficulties for this project going forward. Again, I would like staff to look at, what repositioning some of our approved money for positions that aren't going to get filled. Do we need to use them in another direction? Yeah, That's just where I'm at. The world changes every day, and so if we have positions that haven't been filled, will never be filled, and we've approved the budget for that, do we need to take a serious look at where some of our management money should be spent on some, so like, I appreciate all that's been done on this, but like I say, is this thing growing, or has it grown to the point that it needs to be somebody's job on the phone looking for donors, looking for benefits for the veterans, for veterans administrations to be contacting? Kathy, I know that's been a lot on you, and so, and like I say here, I'm, reached to the fairgrounds for Terry, and I appreciate us as supervisors and our staff and the interest in our projects. But it does benefit our county. It does benefit the constituents, and so I'm wondering where are we at with management, and do we need to look at perhaps that to be somebody's job and obligation in our direction? So, okay, Kathy, there you go.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as Supervisor Klein said, we've been working on this for quite a while. And some of our thoughts and things that we've been doing kind of behind the scenes that we haven't always come forward with reports. As Joseph said, the 501c3 is in the stages. We've met with attorneys to get that rolling, get it set up. And our goal really is at some point in the future, the 501c3 will run this, and they will be doing it with donations, with just somewhat of county oversight. And it's at times maybe monetary contributions, but we're kind of hoping not. The other thing that we've done that I think is going to make it really spin up once Joseph, that's one of Joseph's terms, I notice I'm using spin up, that once we get it going in the construction, we've have Cameron Davis on board, who has, he's been building a website. He took over the Facebook page that was existing we had before. He's done a great job with that. He's also been researching other veterans facilities across the country. And when we had an event on May the 13th, he told us that this facility, from what he's seen, from what it has to offer, stands to be one of the best ones in the state of Arizona, if not across the Southwest. That he thinks it's a beautiful site and has a lot of potential from his research. The other thing, to address what you said, Supervisor Christian said about maintaining the historic value of the property, in the House bill that was introduced, it talks about that. If in the future something would happen 20 years from now when the three of you aren't here, and another board of supervisors says, what are we doing with this property? They will not be able to do that. If it ever loses the veterans' purposes or intent and services, then it reverts back to the federal government. So the county would not be able to make a bad decision in the future. But we are working on a lot going behind the scenes, and I do agree that at some point, this needs to be their full-time job to be working with these groups. There's no way that one of us with our existing jobs can do this. It's way too much. So
Yeah, 'cause
that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, you said they, and so
They.
I was wondering who be they? And so the 501c3 will have a board, and that will
Yes.
be the they
Yes.
that operates it?
Yes.
And that board has been appointed, assigned, reached out for volunteers, or?
Yes.
Okay, so you've already reached 2 people to set on the board for the 501c3. So whomever that will be, that's who they are.
Correct. We can't set up the 501c3 without officers. So that was the first, there were like 5 or 6 steps from the attorney that we have to do in order to establish the
Okay,
501c3.
so we don't
that's what
need
we
to
do.
look at management because you've already appointed management by putting them on a board of the 501c3. Ask and answer, thank you. That's why we have these work sessions.
So one thing to that too, Tim, is a 501c3 its mission is gonna be to try and collect dollars, donations, grants, things like that. I think one of the things that I got from you is the day-to-day operations of the site. Joseph and his facilities crew are gonna be really hard stretched to pull that off. One, because of the distance, two, because of the out of whatever, something breaks and needs fixed now, you know, or you've got somebody rolling in at 6 o'clock in the evening to get in there and get situated. You've got the cleanup to do after people leave. So there's a lot on the management part of it. I think that's the biggest part of that whole program, really.
I guess that's what I was fishing for. Do we
Yeah.
need to look for a position?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure, but once he gets to where he's at, him and Kathy, that you're not gonna be looking for really two. One is gonna have to be dedicated to that office just for reservations and contacts and things like that. Somebody's gonna have to be on the ground to do the day-to-day work that needs to be
Management and
done.
maintenance,
Exactly, yeah. And so, working with contractors when Joseph and his folks can't be there, and unlocking doors and whatever else. I think that's gonna be a real big key. Up to date, I've been around there pretty close and has helped Joseph and others do things like that, but I'm not always around close. I'll still help, obviously, but they need it, but
Well, yeah.
It's not close.
Again, that's something that, we're gonna have more meetings on it, and so, can we look at what we have approved in jobs and see if some of those jobs don't need to be realigned for money that we've already approved without having to add money to our budget for positions for these new facilities? Perhaps maybe we can just rearrange some of the positions that we've approved for
so
some of these.
I think that's a real good point. And I think, I've been talking to James and so for next week after our board meeting, if you want to have just a session on, James could present us the vacancies that are out there and have been out there forever and a day, and really how many we have to take a look at. That's something that we could probably discuss in an hour or so and be, for more information. Are you interested in that?
I'm interested in that. 'Cause
Steve?
What are we budgeted for and what are we using?
I know
So rather than to reach out and say, okay, we need to add to the kitty,
Sure.
have we got something that we can rearrange in there to better help us grow with these facilities?
So am I stepping over the line again, Missy?
Yes, sir.
So how do we do work sessions if I can't ask these guys on?
You need to ask through Mr. Menlove about ideas that you have work session items, and then he will take them to the other members.
You're killing me, Missy.
I know, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Minlove, can you do that for me, please? Okay, only one thing I would say is talk to Mr. Christensen, because he may have an appointment early in that afternoon next week he's got to be at, so. I would ask him, but I'm afraid I'd get in trouble again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Hey, I like the streamline. Okay, yeah, we are 5 to 12. So are we good for today? Joseph, Homero, thank you both and ladies, thank you for what you did. The only thing I want to say and put a shout out to is John Costaneda. He was recognized as the 2022 Animal Control Officer of the Year and presented an award for that. So congratulations to him. That's good going. And with that, what? Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Call the public.
Call to the public. Do we have any in Payson?
No, sir.
We don't have any here, but you got something you want to say on updates? Two things real quick, if I can, Mr. Chairman. Early voting starts next Wednesday, July 6th, runs through the 29th. Early voting is here in the Recorder's Office, which has been remodeled to increase security for that, and then also at the Tommy Klein Martin Complex has been stated. Voting day for the primary is August 2nd. And publicly wanted to thank Homero here in a board meeting for all that he's contributed to Gila County. Mr. Vela, what more can we say other than the bottom line is, in government, do you make the needle move? You make things happen, Mr. Vela. You make things happen. I don't know anybody that does that better than you. And we, myself, are very, very grateful for your contributions to Gila County, for your time, your commitment. I know that your days have been so far beyond what would be typical of starting at 5 o'clock in the morning and running till 10 o'clock at night, day after day after day. Thank you. You have made a huge difference for all of us here, and I thank you and appreciate your commitment, your devotion to all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So can we talk you out of retiring and just staying with us for a while, Homer?
It's my third time. I think I need to, there's a time when you need to move forward, and that's true for me. I need to go to the next step of what I need to do. But I thank you, James, for those words, and it's been a pleasure working here. The challenges have been plenty, and the rewards have been plenty as well. I've seen a number of things that organizations actually turned around, and there's been plenty of reward for me. So it's a two-way street. I took something and I gave something, and I'm very appreciative for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Homer, and I tell you what, you gave a lot more than what you took, because I go back 5 years ago when we stepped on this board, and hopefully, Tim, you agree with this, but the county was kind of just sitting here. And if you look back from that time to where we are today, and the projects that you've been involved with and that you've pushed along are amazing. I mean, if you just take the broadband side of it alone, what the work you did on the broadband, I tell you, it's unbelievable. And so I credit pretty much where we're at today is because of Homer. I really do. And you know, you've kind of set a precedence, in my opinion, that I'm really proud that you can retire and enjoy life now, don't have that trip back and forth. That's really good. But it is going to put a crimp on us. And one thing that I have made really well known, we're not going backwards. Homer has set a precedence on the direction we've been going, and I, for one, am not going to settle for less. So, Tim, do you have something you want to talk on?
Yeah, no, just ditto. I agree with you 100%. We needed a culture change. And Homero has helped us in many, many ways with that culture change in can do instead of I can't. And I love that can do attitude. I love the projects that we've been able to do because of it, because of Homero and what he's brought. And I want that to continue, and I hope staff realizes the change that the things that we can get done with effort, and not that instead of finding 5 reasons why I can't do something, it's like I'm gonna get it done. Just give me a minute and I'll figure out how. So thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Homero. You've been a great help to me, I know, and you are just literally unreplaceable. So the county is losing a strong right arm. But I understand you may still work a little here, so that's encouraging. Thank you, Homero.
Thank you all.
Thank you again. And so, go ahead, James.
Mr. Chairman, quickly, we're having a luncheon for Mr. Vela, celebration for contributions and all those who have worked with him with the 3 departments that he has worked with specifically. Gila Hogs is catering, all by private donations, no county money, so that doesn't come into it. But we're looking forward to a good party out here this afternoon.
Thank you for setting that up too, James. Real quick, just updates. James, did you have anything you want to talk about today?
Nothing further.
Tim, how about you?
No, I'm good, Chairman. Thank you.
Steve? I'm good too. I'll hold mine for the next meeting so we can get gone. And so thank you guys so much. Thanks, ladies. And we'll see you out there.